Hi, JB. Good morning.
Hey, Anna, good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Good, good. It's actually evening for me. That's all right.
Hi, Dimitri.
Hey guys, good to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, guys. Let's just give 1 or 2 minutes for others to join, and we'll begin shortly. 9:05, so I think probably we can just start. So everyone, thanks for joining today's catalog community thing. Yeah, so let's just start to discuss about the topics on the list. So the first topic is the request to review Authenticated Manager PR. If anyone wants to talk more about that, please feel free to.
I think I can start. So yeah, what happened lately is that Edward was reviewing the pull request. I don't know if Edward is here. But in the end, he prefers that we split the pull request into many smaller pull requests. I initially thought that just splitting into commits would be enough, but apparently it isn't. So yeah, so if that's the situation, I think I would need to go ahead and split that pull request into many ones, but that would take time. And because I don't think all the commits actually compile, they're rather logical groups, but I'm not sure that if you take them individually, they actually compile. So yeah, that's it.
So Edward just joined, so he may comment on this too, but I'll follow up on that. Like, it is a really big PR, and I had a similar, impression when I was reviewing it. I was like, well, how can we split this up? And it looked quite difficult. But I do think, we found a couple other issues like the token supplier and some other things that were kind of broken. So we do need to be really careful with this. So I do think it makes sense, and maybe you can just work with Edward to figure out, hey, what are kind of good logical things that we can break up? Maybe the interfaces, the auth implementations, and then like the S3 packages separately, or some combination of things where we might be able to actually get them in individually without like completely breaking the tests or whatever. But we also want to make sure that we do it right. So that's the thing. Like, we don't want to end up breaking this. JB?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I took a new look today. I think it makes sense to split it. My only small request is, as this PR is pending for a long time, if it's possible to wait the different PR for 1.8, just to be sure, because when I took a look on the PR, it's targeted for 1.8 release. So that would be my, if it's okay, the best effort to include the different PRs on 1.8 would be great.
Yeah, and just for clarification, like when we put a milestone on the PR, that's not like a hard and fast, like has to happen kind of thing. We discuss these, we figure out what makes sense, and if it makes more sense to bump it to the next release, we can bump it to the next release. It would be great if we could get through the breaking it up and getting it in, though. Like, I think that there's a lot of people who want to get this in, and then start using this as a reference for the other implementation so that we can have kind of consistency in how we're applying this, which I think Christian has been kind of helping figure out, well, what is the right authentication, authorization, implementation for this.
Yeah, that's why I said best effort. Just if possible, that would be great.
Okay, so I think like we can just looking forward to the splitted PRs, and I encourage everyone to review that after they are published. And yeah, I think we can proceed to the next agenda item, which is how to proceed with the authentication guide.
Yeah, just put that one in because I briefly want to like discuss how to proceed with the topic. I don't really want to go into the details on actual content because I think it's all in the document and we all just need time to review it. We've been waiting for a while now, basically, for people to comment on this. I just basically wanted to ask if anyone else wanted to give some input there, or also discuss on like if we should wait for the auth manager PR to be in a further state. Otherwise, because I already got feedback from quite a few people. I could also go ahead and create a markdown page and PR it to the docs, attach it to the open improvement request that this document is attached to. I just noticed I haven't put the link in here. Let me add the link in a second to the notes. Yeah, so I guess just on a high level, wanted to ask on feedback from PMCs and the community on how to proceed with that.
I think we should probably just bring it back up on the dev list. This is just like a hard time, I think, to get people to do feedback. Since the holidays are coming up so soon and everyone's like Q4 rush. But I think we should definitely just keep bringing it up. This is probably something we should also bring up at the general community sync as well. I think this is kind of a little broader reaching than just the catalog. That would be my suggestion. It's just not really great timing right now.
Okay, no, that's all right. So yeah, so I would go ahead then, bring it up in the mailing list again. I would put it on the agenda for the main sync, right? So that we briefly ask people to review it there. Okay, yeah, sounds good. And I'll probably do that then like second week of January or so when people are back from holidays. Yeah.
Yeah, I say for myself because I have like 3 days left before I'm gone, and I'm just like, yeah, if you want me to look at it, it'll be January.
No, it's fine. Then let's do it in January in one of the next things, and then we try to get it in. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's all I wanted here, just to raise awareness for that. I'll send something in the mailing list now and probably a reminder in January, and hopefully we can move forward with that.
Yeah, sounds great. So I think we can move to the next one, which is the drop purge behavior and the REST catalogs for the Spark issue.
Yeah, this is a bit of a general library issue. So Edward and I were discussing it this morning because we have a PR up from a contributor who has a REST catalog, and they noticed that when they do a drop table from Spark, it doesn't use their REST catalog purge implementation. And from what I remember, back in the long ago, we set up Spark catalog to not do any kind of catalog side purge because it was very slow for almost all of the implementations we had at the time. So whenever Spark does a drop table, it instead uses an action called delete reachable files, which does a distributed listing of all the files that you want to delete, and then deletes them on the client before then issuing a purge list drop request to the client code. So that means that if you're using a REST catalog and you attempt to drop a table with purge, it happens on the client for Spark, but for almost every other implementation, and that's like Trino, Iceberg, if you go through other engines and stuff like that, it will always send the request to the catalog itself. The purge flag will be set as true, and we expect the catalog to do something or not do something. So right now we have this kind of split behavior between engines. I think Edward pointed out this morning that we probably should just be passing through the purge flag rather than doing a custom thing here. But that's something that I think is a rather major change in behavior that I'd like us to come in line kind of with how everyone else is doing it. So I was wondering if everyone had any appetite for allowing it to be like a flaggable behavior right now, whether or not to use the actual REST catalog purge, and then move towards like a full change in behavior in the library for Iceberg 2.0 and have big announcements being like, drop table now will actually do whatever your catalog says rather than always deleting all the files.
Yeah, maybe to chime into a little more motivation into that kind of came from out of our ecosystem, and it came because we were implementing soft deletes in the catalog, and we had no way of capturing the intention of Spark users. So with all the other clients, whether the client uses either purge or not purge, like the catalog would know, but then for Spark, wouldn't know. And this is actually a problem currently, that we can't even offer like undrops and soft deletes for everything other than S3, because we don't have a way of stopping the client from actually deleting things. So it just always deletes things. And this is why we, well, created this little PR as like one way to do it. But I guess it's a more fundamental problem. And you're right.
Yeah.
It is a weird problem with lots of nuance to it, unfortunately, because it not only, like, we think of it now in terms of like the REST catalog implementation, but there's also the other catalog implementations and how they behave. And like, it's a problem for Hive, because if you do purge with Hive, I think the Metastore instance tries to do the deletes, and then you run into the problem where it's like, no, we actually want the client to do that because the client is distributed and can take that load. But if you try and do that against the Metastore, you'll crush your. So we need to be careful about, like, how does this apply to the other catalog implementations? What are the defaults? I think we all know where we want to be, which is just like, hey, let the REST catalog take care of this. The client should be doing lightweight operations, and we should defer, which is a big concept in like how we think about solving, you know, those problems in Iceberg, is like, hey, defer till later. So the other thing is, we don't really actually have a way for the catalog to say whether it supports purge or not. So do we assume, or do we put that expectation on the REST catalog that it has to handle purge?
I think what we do is we say that it should just behave the same on all engines. Like, other engines don't even have this opportunity. So we basically have a behavior that is only Spark specific. So my proposal would be, going forward, for REST catalogs, you send the request through. For all of our older catalog implementations, they're always going to behave that way. Because we really don't know, and some of them shouldn't be able to. But if you have a REST catalog and you get a purge flag and you don't know how to handle it, you just don't handle it. And if you do, then you do. And we assume that the implementers of those catalogs have done that correctly if they wanted to, or if they can't, they just didn't. But there's no way to actually safely do a purge then.
Adding to that, I think, you know, maybe there's a couple things that are worth adjusting in the purge API, or, you know, in the delete with purge or drop with purge API, because for one thing, for the client side, like if we wanted the client side being able to do a distributed purge for a more lightweight catalog that doesn't do, you know, an efficient purge, and make that first class, there is kind of a discrepancy in that if credential vending is part of is part of the architecture, right? Then, I mean, so normally drop returns no content, or drop table doesn't return any kind of a response, as opposed to being able to return like a credential. Although I suppose you could, the client side could do like a load table, or you know, use the new, you know, get credential APIs before doing the purge. But then so that's one thing to consider. But then that would also be time limited in how long the client has to perform its purge. And then secondly, like, even if the REST catalog supposedly does have, you know, it can have a more stateful and reliable purge, but there's no way to inspect the state of a purge, right? So I mean, this is also kind of something that's missing from the spec, is like, to make it more first class. And if the fundamental downside of client-side purge is that, you know, the client is you know, the engine is in theory stateless compared to the catalog, then maybe we also need like some, you know, to expand this to be able to inspect that.
I'm a little concerned about like expanding the scope of like purge to include like tracking the status or anything like that. I think, I mean, I agree with Russell, and I think the easiest way to put this is probably the REST catalog needs to implement purge. If it doesn't implement purge, it can fail the request, right? And then we just need to distinguish between the REST catalog clients and other catalogs, because they may have different requirements or behaviors. So we have a clear expectation from what REST catalog should implement, which is purge can either delegate or throw if it doesn't support. I don't know what you do at that point. Like, maybe, you know, you have to run it locally and it just uses the credential it has for load table to delete things if it has access, whatever that means. But we basically treat the REST catalog as we want it to behave, and then preserve the existing behavior for other catalogs.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so just one more thing with the like sending the intent to the catalog is like in case the engines doesn't do a reliable deletion of the file, the catalog understands that it needs to eventually clean up all the files for this table. So maybe later on, catalog can assume the responsibility of reliable deletion of the file. But does the catalog need to do that lazily, or can a engine that understands how to drop a table can also, because it's going to read the files anyway, it understands how to distributedly read the data sets that corresponds to that table. So we can implement very fast, efficient delete in the engine, but the intent should still be there on the catalog in case the engine fails unreliably and couldn't delete everything.
So I think, are you saying that you are looking for an option for the client still to be able to do the delete? Because I think what we're saying is in the REST catalog case, it's either a drop call to the catalog and the catalog will handle eventually deleting it, or a purge call and it will do whatever it should do to purge the data, whatever that means based on the catalog implementation. But nothing in that actually allowed the client to do the delete. Do we need an option for that?
Exactly. So that's where I was saying, like, maybe we should keep an option for that where we do send the intent, but also allow the client to do delete in place.
so we have the. I guess this actually wouldn't be that hard to add as like a procedure because we already have delete reachable files as an action, and the code that we're talking about is literally like if drop table purge, run this action, then send a drop request.
But it doesn't work because you still have potentially orphan files in that location. So somebody still needs to go, like, actually do cleanup.
I'm saying if you want the old behavior, this is what we could expose. Is just say delete reachable files as the procedure. You can invoke that and then do drop table if you want. I don't know. It may be more niche because I agree with you about the state here. Like, I generally wouldn't want the client to be doing this because has no idea about the actual state of the table.
Yeah, because you don't want a catalog implementation that does like a soft drop and then the client goes and actually physically deletes the files.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a bad combination.
Yeah. Sorry for jumping on you, Christian. You should.
No, that was exactly my point. Like my point was just like I don't think we should split this and have like this fallback mechanism. Basically, we should have a clear responsible party, like either the client or the server. For me, it's mostly the server because otherwise we will never be able to implement soft deletions, basically, server side, if the clients start randomly deleting files. And then regarding like the deletion endpoint actually returning credentials, we need to be a little bit careful with that. So yeah, I wouldn't like, for example, S3 REST signing wouldn't work with that basically. Like we would just stop signing requests for a drop table. So at least that lazily wouldn't work.
Yeah, so I think that the real question is there strong pushback against the idea that when we're talking about REST catalog, the drop and purge implementation is a catalog functionality. It is not a client functionality.
Yeah.
But right now, the API itself, if you can pass the flags drops with purge or drop without purge, right? So at least from the API or description, there's no indicate that drop without purge is actually still the server side responsibility. Like client side still can, like at least from the API perspective, client will still think, okay, is this my responsibility to drop all this table, drop all these files, remove all these files.
But well, then the problem is that at least you would need to extend the SQL command to scope this third option, right? Because there is still, yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's really feasible, right? Because you still need the option to, well, drop a table but keep the files in a way.
Yeah, and so I think that becomes then a catalog implementation detail of like, hey, does drop just mean I deregister, but I always leave the files there? Maybe some implementations want to do that for lightweight implementations. For more complicated ones, they may schedule it to be cleaned up later. Purge could be clean it up now. It could be some other behavior. I think it's really just about we provide those as signals to the catalog, but the implementations can differ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's more a REST implementation part, and the configuration is actually on the server side, in my opinion. Each implementation defines the configuration they want, depending how they want to behave for the purge and delete file and stuff like that. So I don't think it makes sense to have anything on the client. I think it should be on the server side only.
Edward? Oh, sorry, Dennis.
Oh yeah. So one point, and also I agree about the server side. Thinking about it, but just one point to clarify is I thought I heard you say, Dan, that purge would potentially mean immediate purge, but drop without purge would mean eventual delete. But I thought that drop without purge is fundamentally more of a release table kind of action, right? Like the intent being that you might be importing it into another catalog somewhere and you intend to keep it forever.
It's an implementation detail. Like we don't necessarily, because you can say drop, and then the catalog can say, okay, I'll retain the data for X amount of days, and that's what my scheduled behavior is. It isn't, and this is a separate point that we haven't actually discussed, which is like, how do you deregister a table from a catalog, right? How does a catalog know that it no longer maintains that location and it shouldn't be doing anything with that? But I think that's separate from drop, because drop is an explicit thing from the catalog. And for a catalog that manages its own data, drop means I can do whatever I want with it based on whatever I've said I will do with the drop operation.
So that's an interesting one that I would want to definitely double click. I agree. Maybe it's a little bit different than this purge discussion, but perhaps if there are people who are interpreting catalog owners who interpret drop without purge to still mean that maybe you're allowed to go and delete the files, I think that's a very important distinction. Like the fact that there's no deregister API today suggests to me that drop without purge is
like a different meaning, though. Like drop is just like, think about a database. Drop is drop table. Purge means immediately get rid of all the data now. At least that's what it meant in the Hive context.
Sure, right, but so, drop without. But like today, like you said, there is no deregister functionality.
Right. So that's a separate thing, though. Like we shouldn't conflate like drop table with deregister. Like I don't want to get into a situation where we think that, hey, a drop means, because think of all the use cases that are out there where people create like temp tables and they just drop the table, right? Who cleans them up? Like now I have to actually change all those statements to purge. No, it's the catalog's responsibility to clean up the data when a table is dropped. And then how they do that and when they do that is entirely defined by the catalog implementation.
Yeah, even without purge. Okay, yeah, no, that's just very interesting. I wonder if others we should see like in the broader set of people even beyond here, like maybe a survey would be like just how have people been interpreting drop tables to date?
Yeah, I don't think that we can overlap the idea of drop table and deregister. We would need to have a explicit contract about how does a catalog give up ownership of something.
Then we probably need that contract like today, right? But
Edward, sorry, you've been hanging out there.
Yeah, I just wanted to basically summarize what we discussed. So from what I heard is basically if a client does a drop table purge and we have a REST catalog, we always delegate to the catalog, right? And in every other case, to preserve the current behavior, we just do the client side delete.
I think just with purge or
Preserve
without
the
purge.
current behavior.
The same.
So this is a behavior change that we have to figure out, because what we were saying is drop just doesn't send the purge flag, but still relies on the catalog to clean up the location. Because this is the problem that I think everybody is talking about.
Yeah.
That the client goes and deletes all the files, and the catalog.
Do you want to actually maintain that behavior or not?
So My proposal again, and I'll write this up for the mailing list, but I think we have most agreement on this. For all the old catalogs, we just don't change what those are doing. We will never pass through purge that, even though that those are the old ways. I don't want to break anyone. For REST catalog implementations, I think for now we should have a flag, and then in a major change, we should do a big blast announcement. We are changing the default behavior here. If you had some pipeline or some maintenance service that assumed that doing a drop with a purge would do a client-side delete, it's going to stop doing that, and have that for 2.0. So that would be my proposal.
And I'm trying to not introduce an additional flag to get that behavior.
Yeah, I just wanted that to be temporary, because I feel like the actually changing the default behavior right now might break a lot of people. I'm just not sure. Like, if people assume that they're having files deleted, even though I think you mentioned like Tabular, right, didn't do a purge, right? So like if you use the drop table from Spark though, while pointing to a tabular catalog, you did do a purge.
And Tabula actually just prohibited this by setting the S3 enable delete false flag, but this flag doesn't exist for Azure Data Lake Store and GCS. So for those, actually soft deletions with Tabula didn't work. Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't want to change the current behavior.
Yeah, the intent was to achieve that specific behavior, right? So that we could do undeletes, right?
Yeah.
But I think we need a crisper solution to that. Then disabling the S3 deletes.
And so my thinking in terms of how can we achieve essentially what we want without introducing an additional configuration is forward the purge if the underlying catalog is a REST catalog, and if it isn't, we never forward the purge and do whatever the code is currently doing. Wouldn't that save us from that one catalog?
I just worry about other REST
behavior changes.
implementations.
Yeah, I might go Russell because that's behavior change right now. For example, the team
that is true. Yeah.
That teams already rely on this behavior on the internal maintenance jobs to do the retention stuff, and then when they drop the table with purge, and it's the client side will do that, right? But if we change the behavior, then just that fail.
I'm trying to measure the amount of cleanup that would have to happen if we do this switch automatically right now could be huge. I'm thinking specifically of our colleagues back at Apple who have some implementations that I am very sure would just be in a huge amount of trouble because they did not respect the purge flag or do server-side purges. They assumed you did it. If you did it in Spark, it deleted everything. So they would just end up with petabytes of files that they would have to clean up after the fact.
Yeah, so I guess there's no way around having a flag.
It's just temporary. I promise we'll pull it out. I just wanna change it in a big Iceberg 2.0. We can have our list of deprecations and stuff and be like, guess what? This is changing. If you're switching to Iceberg 2.0, get ready.
Do we have an Iceberg 2.0 list where we could attach this to right now?
I think we have a milestone that you can attach issues to.
So we had
started collecting
on it right away.
Yeah, there's a milestone. I think we've been collecting some of these things that we want to break or change.
I can write up an issue for behavioral change and we can attach it to it. And then for now, we have the property.
Yeah,
I agree. I think having the property, it's worth the temporary complexity because the behavior change would be quite significant otherwise.
Yeah. So as an alternative and workaround for those building catalogs, you could actually on an undrop operation do an S3 recover or something like that, and then it's just a matter of how much versioned history do you have. It's not great. I would rather have a contract.
Our Apple buddies are on HDFS.
Yeah. Well, they have a trash, right? But they probably don't use it, right?
No, it is not used.
Yeah.
I can tell you from many support cases it is not used.
Yeah. It takes up space.
Yeah, I think there's minor points for drop without purge, because right now we don't see anything from the REST catalog specification. Drop without purge means the client side still cannot do anything about these files. I understand this is a very subtle like semantic is, but just in case it's not a Spark, so it's not any engine use our client's beauty within the Iceberg, they might assume that, okay, drop without purge, then client side can just do the purge. I just send to server, let server not purge anything, but I can do purge. That's still not a kind of a expected behavior for REST catalogs. So we might have a little bit clarify on that one. It's just my minor point.
Okay, I'll note that all down. I'll write up a little brief on what we discussed and send it out to the mailing list, and we can make some issues about behavior changes if everyone agrees. I think everyone here agrees what it should do. We all agree it should send the purge flag to the REST server. We just are afraid of the immediate impact of changing that.
Just a quick follow-up for the flag. So do we want the flag to be, because I'm looking at the PR, so it's a catalog flag with like rest.catalog purge. Do we actually want that to be a general catalog properties, or we just want a flag for the Spark? I think that would make more sense, because if for example, in Iceberg, the default behavior is just REST catalog will send the purge flag, and while other catalogs do the purge on the client side. So I don't think it makes sense for other like engines to support client side delete for the REST. We just like keep it right away and ignore that flag. So,
yeah, that's why I wanted to scope it to like Spark REST catalog client side purge, because like I want to be clear, no one else has this behavior to even like dig into.
And so what is that flag signaling? Is if that flag is set to true, is it just sending the purge flag to the catalog, or is it actually a client side purge? Like what?
If you set it to true, so the default is false. If you set it to true, we, instead of doing the client side reachable delete actions, we just send catalog delete with purge, drop with purge. So it's a little complicated because this only takes place if the instance is a REST catalog. But other than that, hopefully it only lasts temporarily until we change the behavior.
Okay. I can ask follow-ups on the PR. Yeah.
great. Looks like we have discussed a lot about that, and looking forward to the ongoing progress on that. Yeah. So I think that's that almost finished today's agenda. Does anyone have like anything more to discuss or add to the agenda? Right. If not, I just want to make like a final a final notice that the next catalog meeting will supposed to happen on January 1st, and I'm going to send a notice to cancel that due to the holiday. And so yeah, since we have no more topics, I think we can end the meeting earlier today and save everyone 20 minutes. Looking forward to see you guys in the new year.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holiday.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.